Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really practical, something that, frankly, affects millions of people. We're talking about the foundational architecture of the IELTS exam.
That's the International English Language Testing System.
Right. And if you're thinking about studying or migrating or working in an English-speaking country, well, this deep dive is basically your shortcut. Our mission today is to just strip away all the noise and really distill what you need to know about its structure, the different versions, the logistics, and maybe most importantly, how the skills are actually tested.
And I think we have to start with the sheer scale of it, just to give it some context.
Okay.
This is not some small niche exam. Last year, something like 4.5 million students took the IELTS. It's a huge mechanism for global mobility, and it's recognized by, over 1,000 organizations in 155 countries.
Wow, that's massive.
Yeah.
It really shows you why getting a handle on the mechanics of this thing is, well, it's not negotiable.
Exactly. When people talk about the gold standard for English testing, this is it. It's accepted everywhere you'd want to go, the UK, Australia, Canada, and more universities in the US are getting on board. So understanding its structure is really the first step to beating it.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The very first decision a person has to make, and this seems to be where a lot of the confusion starts. There are two versions of this test.
Yes.
The question you have to ask yourself is, are you taking the academic test or the general training test?
And that choice really dictates everything that follows. The content, some of the tasks you'll face. The purpose is pretty clear-cut. IELTS Academic is, for students, people going into higher education or registering with professional groups abroad.
So the content is designed to see if you can handle a university environment.
Right, a demanding technical academic world.
Right.
And you have IELTS General Training. That's more for migration, work visas, or professional contexts where you just need to prove you have good, functional, everyday English.
Okay, but here's what I find a little confusing. Our sources say that the two tests are actually 95 to 97% similar.
They are.
So if they're almost identical, why do we treat them like two completely different animals? Is that just, marketing?
That is a fantastic question. And the answer is that the tiny 3 to 5% difference can be, catastrophic if you're not ready for it.
Catastrophic.
No, I mean it. While the listening and speaking parts are always identical, the differences in reading and writing are significant enough to completely tank your score if you prepare for the wrong one.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's take reading. On the academic test, you might get a passage from a scientific journal about, archaeology or particle physics.
Right, something dense.
Very dense. It requires analytical reading.
Mm-hmm.
But on the general training test, the reading might be from an employee handbook or a job advertisement. It's testing functional English.
So the academic reading is just inherently harder. Different vocabulary, different context.
Absolutely. But the single biggest difference, the one that makes this choice so critical, is writing task 1.
Oh, okay.
Academic candidates have to look at a graph or a chart or some kind of diagram and write a formal report summarizing that data.
And general training.
They have to write a letter. It could be a formal complaint, a request for information, something like that.
I see. So if you spend months practicing how to write letters, and then you sit down in the exam and they show you a complex pie chart,
You're in serious trouble.
yeah, that 3% difference suddenly feels like 100% of the problem.
Exactly. So the takeaway is you have to know your variant. It's step 1.
Okay, moving on to the assessment itself. The test covers 4 skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. But our sources point to a really insightful way of looking at them, not just as a list.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea of passive versus active skills. This feels like a real aha moment for anyone preparing.
It's the blueprint for how you should study. We classify listening and reading as the passive skills.
Passive meaning you're just receiving information.
Precisely. The content is already created for you. You're just listening to it or reading it. Your job is to understand, to extract, to recognize patterns. You're training your brain to find keywords and map ideas quickly.
So for those skills, practice is all about efficiency.
Exactly. Skimming, scanning, anticipating answers, spotting the distractors in the audio, you're perfecting your intake.
And then you have the other side of the coin, the active skills, the ones where you have to create.
That's right. Writing and speaking. This is where your ability to produce coherent, grammatically correct language under pressure is measured. You're pulling ideas out of thin air, structuring them, using your vocabulary.
So preparation for those skills has to be completely different. It's not just about drills.
It's about timed performance. You need to do active practice. You set a timer, you use frameworks for your essays or your speaking answers, and you just produce. It shifts your focus from, do I know this word,
Yeah.
to, can I actually use this word in a sentence right now?
That's a huge mental shift. It really changes how you'd plan your study schedule.
It's half your score, and it's earned through production, not just recognition.
Speaking of timing, let's talk about the exam day itself. The main block, listening, reading, and writing, is a marathon. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes straight through.
Yes, and that cognitive load is immense. Listening always comes first. It's about 40 minutes. Then you go straight into reading, then writing. There are no real breaks in there.
So stamina is a skill in itself.
A critical one. But what's interesting and maybe a little easier on the test taker is that the speaking section is handled completely separately.
Why do they do that?
It's strategic, partly for logistics, but also to reduce test fatigue. The speaking test is a short interview, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, with a live examiner,
Face-to-face.
face-to-face. And it's usually scheduled up to 5 days before or after that main session. It lets them assess your fluency in a more natural setting, away from the stress of the written exam.
That brings us to another big choice, one that seems like it should just be personal preference, but it turns out it's a very strategic calculation.
Oh, yes.
Paper-based versus computer-based.
It sounds so simple. Right? Do I want to write by hand or do I want to type? But it can have a huge effect on your performance, especially in the writing part.
The paper test is what we all know. You write, you circle answers that's familiar.
It's familiar, exactly. The computer test feels more modern, maybe faster, but it demands a specific skill that most of us, frankly, overestimate.
And this is where our source material provides a real gem, a very, very specific metric for who should actually choose the computer test. I want you to share this because it's something everyone listening can test for themselves.
It's incredibly specific advice, and it's not just marketing. The guidance is this. You should only choose the computer-based test. Only if you can type 330 words in 40 minutes.
Okay, 330 words in 40 minutes.
With minimal errors. And this is the most important part, without looking at your keyboard.
Without looking at the keyboard. Wow. Now, 330 words in 40 minutes doesn't sound that fast on its own, but the accuracy and the not looking part?
Yeah.
Why is that so critical?
Because the test isn't about typing speed. It's about linguistic production speed. When you're writing, you're juggling complex arguments, paragraph structure, vocabulary. If you have to spend even a little bit of your brain power on finding the keys or fixing typos, you're stealing focus from the actual language task.
I see. So the physical act of typing becomes a cognitive drain.
A huge one. With the paper test, even if your handwriting is slow, you have total control. It's a lower stress environment mechanically, which saves that precious mental energy for the hard part, which is the writing itself.
So the takeaway is, unless you're maybe a programmer or a journalist who types all day every day,
The paper-based test is the safer bet.
the recommended choice. That's a fantastic practical piece of advice.
It really is.
Okay, so we've covered the versions of the test, the skills, the delivery modes. Let's talk about who's actually running this whole operation.
Right, the organizations behind it. The whole IELTS ecosystem is managed by 3 major players: Cambridge, the British Council, and IDP Education. They are the gatekeepers.
So they create the tests, they mark the answers, they train the instructors.
You do it all. They're the quality control. That's what ensures the test is consistent whether you take it in London or Mumbai.
And for the logistics, our sources gave some specific details for India, which kind of serve as a good example of how it works globally.
They do. In India, for example, all registration goes through the official IDP website. It's very standardized. And it's important to mention the cost. The fee right now is around 18,000 rupees. The exact number isn't the point for our global listeners, but the key thing is that it's a significant financial investment.
And it goes up every year, I imagine.
It does. It goes up yearly, which really underlines the importance of trying to pass it on your first go.
No question.
Yeah.
And what about availability? Is it easy to find a place to take it?
Extremely. Again, using India as the model, there are over 75 test centers in 70 different cities. This just shows how committed they are to making it accessible. And they take all forms of payment: cash, cards, digital payments. They make the process pretty smooth.
Okay, that covers the full foundation. Let's just pull together the most critical takeaways for someone listening to this.
I'd say there are 3 strategic things you have to walk away with. 1, you have to choose the right variant academic or general training, and you have to focus on that specific writing task 1.
That's the non-negotiable.
Number 2, you have to understand the difference between passive skills listening and reading, which are about efficiency, and the active skills, writing and speaking, which are all about production practice.
Train them differently. And number 3,
That pragmatic choice, paper versus computer. Don't just assume computer is better. You have to be honest with yourself about that typing metric. It's a serious self-assessment.
It absolutely is.
It can really impact your final score.
Okay, so to wrap this up, here's a final thought for you to take away. Given that really specific, almost punishingly high requirement for the computer-based test, what does that tell you about the pressure of that whole 2-hour and 45-minute exam block?
It's designed to test more than just your language. It's testing your focus, your endurance. So how might your preparation change if you started treating it that way? If you practiced writing like a timed performance and reading like a pure technical data extraction exercise, that mindset shift is the next layer of strategy you need before you even start looking at question types. We'll leave it there for today.